Welcome everyone to Leafing Through Your Closet, Cabbage Tie-Dye. I'm Maria on the Media and Community team at the Tech, and we are thrilled to show you the possibilities of the science behind color-changing cabbage pigment. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. Our program today is being recorded. It will be available on the website. So if you want to follow along and do your own tie-dye, stick with us for ideas, and then come back and watch it on your own time to look at more specific things. We would like to thank the Tech Interactive supporters, especially our members. We're so happy to see you today. And we're going to get started with our program. So we'll have time for a brief Q&A at the end, but feel free to drop in your questions in the chat. It is my honor to introduce you to Dr. Caitlin Nealon, one of the scientists behind the Biotinkering lab activities at the Tech. One of these activities is Cabbage Inks, an at-home version of an activity we had at the Biotinkering lab, BioInks.
Hi, Maria. So our version at the Tech of BioInks used really friendly bacteria to create pigment that we then turned into watercolor paints. It was a lot of fun, but it's a little hard to grow those helpful little bacteria at home. I mean, who has the time to take care of them and keep an eye on them? So instead, we found a way to use red cabbage to make watercolor paints instead.
Yeah, and if you would like to try this out yourselves, you can find the Cabbage Inks activity guide on the Tech Interactive at-home site, and we're going to drop the link in the chat so you can see that.
So the Cabbage Inks activity is focused, like I said, on making watercolor paints, but we can use the pigment we're getting out of cabbages for more than just paints. We can also use them as dyes. And today we'll be showing you how to use a cabbage to make color-changing tie-dye. I mean, check out our awesome shirts.
Yeah.
So if you do decide to check out the Cabbage Inks activity guide, we'll specifically be using steps 1 and 3 to make our Cabbage Inks tie-dye, just in case you're planning to follow along with the guide.
Yeah, Caitlin, so you mentioned pigments earlier. What exactly are they?
So pigment is a material that has a specific and vibrant color. So you can see this cabbage, right? It has a lovely purple color, and this comes from a pigment. So ancient people used like clay or ground earth for really simple pigments, but natural pigments can also come from plants or minerals or other living things like insects.
Oh, wow. And actually, if you like doing art, you definitely use pigments in paints and maybe even colored pencils.
Definitely. A lot of really bright and super vibrant pigments are often made in a lab, but you have probably worn a plant pigment. Indigo is the pigment that gives blue jeans their distinctive color, and you find it in plants. So today we're going to pull our own plant pigment from some cabbages.
Woo, let's take a closer look at that cabbage.
Okay, so red cabbage, this friend here, is full of pigment and has a pigment in it called flavin. Flavin is what's called an anthocyanin pigment. These are a larger family of pigments that you can find in a lot of other plants. You can, right now, if you're looking outside, you can easily spot some anthocyanins if you can find a tree that has red leaves. So they're related, but not quite the same pigment that's causing your leaves to turn red right now.
Oh, that's so cool. And it's actually not that hard to extract the pigment, right?
No, it's not hard at all. You just have to boil your cabbage in some water. So let's flip over and I'll show you what I'm working with. So you just want to cut up your cabbage and boil it in some water. So I like to chop it up in pretty big chunks before I cook it. They don't have to be really small, although if all you can find is a head of shredded cabbage works great too. And you can just boil it in some water.
Nice. About how much water do you use, Caitlin?
So I use about 4 cups of water. This is kind of a small cabbage, so if you take a look in the pot, there's quite a lot of water compared to the amount of cabbage I put in there. But you don't need to fully cover your cabbage in the water. You just want enough so that most of your cabbage is touching the water. So it doesn't all have to be submerged. And so I let it cook for a while to let the water reduce. It helps reducing the water helps to really concentrate your pigments. You get something that's a lot more vibrant.
I think one thing though to keep in mind is if you do want to make your pigment more concentrated and you're cooking it for a while, just be careful and check on it so it doesn't burn, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I think also for tie dye, you want to make sure you have enough pigment at the end, so don't let all that water evaporate.
Definitely. So how much you want to concentrate your pigment and how long you want to let that cook and sort of let the water evaporate really depends on what you're using it for. If you're making paints like you'd find in our Cabbage Inks activity guide, you want to really concentrate your pigment, get it down to just a little bit of water so that you get really, really nice colors when you paint with it. But for tie-dye, right, we need a lot more pigment because you want to make sure that you can cover your whole garment. So it does take a while to cook down, but thankfully I already have some made. And so once you've cooked your cabbage for a while and boiled it,
Yeah, what do you do?
you it helps to strain it. So I've got just a colander and a bowl. That way you don't end up with, whoo, if you miss like I just did, you don't end up with a whole bunch of big chunks of cabbage on your shirt because really, who wants big chunks of leaves on their shirt? You get to see how much I spilled when I moved this.
Do you have to let it cool down?
It helps. I like to, just so that you're not like trying to work with a hot pigment, but you can totally just let it cool.
Nice.
And look at that.
Oh, wow.
Clearly on the cutting board.
Purple. Yeah, you can totally see it on the cutting board.
Right? It's a really awesome color. It would look so cool on a shirt.
Yeah, so actually we're going to use that pigment to tie dye today. I'm going to show you a few techniques for some different patterns in a second. Now I do have to point out this pigment is water soluble, so just keep that in mind if you are thinking of washing whatever you tie dye, right?
Definitely. So Maria, I'm curious because I love the shirt you're wearing. How did you make that?
So for this shirt, I used a bullseye pattern. This is kind of a pretty, I think it's a common tie-dye pattern, but let me show you how I got it. So let's say, I'm going to pull a shirt here on the side. Say you want to tie-dye a shirt with this bullseye pattern. You want to lay it out flat. You also want to get some rubber bands. Let me grab some rubber bands. I think folding is what will create those patterns. And depending on how you fold things, you'll get different patterns. So start by laying your shirt nice and flat. And to start off, you're gonna find any spot on the shirt where you'd like that bullseye to start. And you're gonna pinch it. So I'm just gonna pinch it here. And you're gonna grab your rubber band and tie that little blub off. So I'm just going to tie this off.
So is there a place on your shirt that you'd like to place the bullseye, Maria?
You know, I kind of like it like the bottom corner, either left or right, kind of offset from the center. You can, like I said, you can start that anywhere. Okay, so I have one tied off and you're going to go for another segment. So you just pinch a little bit more of that material. And while I'm doing this on a shirt, you can do this on any fabric. Shirts are just cool because you can wear them afterwards. So I'm tying another section off, and then I'm going to keep going. And in a second, I'll show you what the finished one looks like. So you see, I'm just tying off little segments like that. And of course, later it'll get bigger and bigger. The finished shirt will look something like this. So kind of a funky unicorn horn or cornucopias. I don't know. And all you do with this is, well, for now, we're going to leave it to the side, but then you would dunk it in pigment. And then later on, we'll show you how we can dye that. Then we have, I'm going to show you another technique. And this is a Shibori technique I used for this bandana right here.
Oh, that's so cool. Wait, so what's a Shibori?
Shibori is a Japanese fabric dyeing method. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of really cool patterns you can try out. This one, I'm trying to stretch it so you can see it a little better. But it's got at certain points the green you see, and there's some pretty faint lines because I did this a while ago, but it'll create kind of like squares. It's super cool. You got to check this one out. And it's actually really easy to do. So let me grab a fresh one. Again, we're going to need some rubber bands. And in this case, I'm using a bandana. You want to use something, I would say I'm using something rectangular. It makes it easier to see where you're folding and have like an even pattern. So laying it nice and flat, let me push this up a little bit so you can see. You're going to grab one end, fold it up to about the middle. This piece of fabric is not super square right now, but imagine the middle line and then fold it back. So you create like this long rectangle right here. And then you're going to fold it back onto itself. And you want to keep the edges as even as you can. So I'm going to fold it down a little bit. And then you're going to fold it back onto itself again. So you're going backwards and forwards here. Backwards and forwards. And I'm going to get right up to the other side of the bandana in a second. Let's do a little fold here. So I end up with this long rectangle. And then what I'm going to do is, oh, I don't need the rubber band yet. In a second, I will. Now you're going to start making triangle folds. What I just did here is called an accordion fold. So it's like an accordion, right? It folds. And for the triangle fold, it's an accordion fold, same thing, except you're using triangles. So starting on one corner here, fold it up like a triangle and try to press it because those folds are what will be making the pattern in the end. So triangle.
So you're
Go
using a
ahead.
bandana. Do you think you could do this on other things?
Oh yeah, you can definitely do it on other pieces of fabric. I used a bandana because it was a nice like square shape, so I could play with different patterns and keep my folds even. Say you do this on a shirt, you follow the same technique, same folding method. I guess when you get to the sleeves, you might have to imagine where those lines might fall a little bit more. But otherwise, you can do it on any fabric.
That's so
Any
cool.
fabric that you can lay flat. I guess if things are scrunched together, those might be a lot harder. You can still try it. So yeah, I'm just going to keep going back and forth, trying to keep it nice and even. Just folding it backward onto itself. I'm going a little fast, but definitely take your time on this because, again, you want to make those folds even. So you get a really nice even pattern.
Do you have to use rubber bands when you're ready? Oh, I asked that a little too soon.
No, yeah, I mentioned rubber bands. So yes, Caitlin, you got it. Once you have your thing all folded up into a nice chunky triangle, you grab some rubber bands just to hold it in place. And I tie off these corners here. So just tie that off. And this side. In the end, what's making the pattern is your folds though, not the rubber bands.
Oh, so this would be different from normal tie-dye.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, yeah, because the rubber bands are what's holding things in place too. And those folds control like how much the pigment concentrates in a certain spot.
That makes
So
sense.
I'm going to do one last rubber band in the middle here. And that's it. That's our triangle fold Shibori method bandana. So let me show you once again what this will get you. The triangle fold gets you this. You can kind of see some purple and pink in the middle there, and then the greens on the corners, right? You can imagine where the triangles would fold there. And the horn-looking thing right here will get you a bullseye pattern. So yeah, once you're done folding, let me grab these two right here. Once you're done folding, you want to dunk your pieces of fabric into your pigment. And then later, you'll get to modify them a little bit more, and we're going to show you. So I have some pre-made pigment. Let me grab a little tray here so it doesn't get too messy. So I have some pre-made pigment. And I'm going to dunk them in here, and I will let them sit for about 5 minutes.
What kind of fabric are you using, Maria?
Oh, that's a good question. So cotton worked really well for me. Um, seems like uh, anything that's not coated should work. But cotton was the best. I did try some canvas bags, and unfortunately, those did not work at all. The material was a little too thick. Um, but yeah, you can see it picked up the pigment right away. I still want to let it sit there for a bit. But cotton.
Your pigment
Um,
must be a lot more concentrated than mine was, because that picked up a lot more color.
oh, well, good. Yeah, like we said, if you let it boil a little bit longer, right, it'll get more and more concentrated. If it's not super concentrated, it still works. It just might fade a little bit easier once it dries. Let's see.
So if you've done a lot of tie-dye in the past, you might have used like soda ash or something to pre-treat your fabric to kind of help that dye bind. We actually don't recommend pre-treating because the things that you use to pre-treat your fabric will affect or will limit the number of colors that you can get out of your pigment that starts out really nice and purple.
Yeah, that's actually a super good thing to point out. I did try soda ash. It everything in the end, once it dried, it was not very colorful. So avoid pre-treating. I would say avoid pre-soaking it, because if you say you soak something in water, some people like to throw in salt to help like pigments bind a little better. But if you use water, you're gonna end up diluting your pigment, so it's not gonna be as vibrant. But yeah, Caitlin mentioned getting colors. You can get a ton of colors with cabbage pigment.
Yeah, so here's the thing about flavin, which is our pigment in our red cabbage. It makes a really, really pretty purple color in its normal state or its usual state, but you can change the color of your cabbage pigment. So flavin is pH sensitive. So if you add either acids or bases, you can end up with a whole bunch of different colors. So we can make we're gonna change some colors real fast right now using just some simple household acids and bases. So if I wanna make it pink, I can add an acid like vinegar or lime juice. Which one should I add, Maria?
Ooh, I would say lime juice.
Lime juice it is. All right, let's see what this does. So we've got our lovely purple. Add in some lime juice. I will add a little bit more. And then we'll swirl it around a little, get it all nice and mixed. And you'll see that suddenly we no longer have purple pigment.
No, we don't.
Absolutely. You can get some other colors out of it too. You can get some blue if you add a base. So I've got here, I put a little bit of dish soap in water. And so we'll add some of that in. It's not quite as immediate, or it's not quite as big of a color change just because the blue and purple they're really dark to start with. I think if I tilt it a little, whoop, oh, it looks like blue when I spill it. But if you swirl it, it looks like a really cool blue, different from the purple it started as underneath all the bubbles. You can also get some other colors if you add in a stronger base. So our dish soap is more of a weak base, but you add something that's a little bit more basic. So I dissolved a little bit of OxyClean in water, but you can use there are other household bases you can use, like Windex or a laundry booster. But if you're interested in trying other things, definitely look for anything that has sodium carbonate in it. That will help you get your cool basic solutions. We add just a little and swirl it, and see it's this really great green, right? You can kind of catch it along the outside.
My favorite color.
This is an awesome green. And that's if I just add a little.
Wow.
Add a whole bunch. Let's see if I may not have made this basic enough to get it to go a little bit yellowy.
Oh, you can get yellow.
More of like a lime green. I think you can kind of, this is the problem with using soap, is the bubbles get in the way of the pretty colors. But if you add a bunch, you can end up with something that is, there we go. I think you can see the color has changed quite a bit now.
Oh, yeah.
As you let it go. So all of those have changed from our original lovely purple. So it gives us a whole bunch of different colors to work with. There you go, you can see the purple really nicely. It gives us a whole bunch of different colors to work with that we can mix and match and change.
Very nice. And if you want more ideas of like acids and bases that you can use to change the color of your pigment, definitely check out the Cabbage Inks guide.
This might be my new favorite color. I don't think I've managed to make such a pretty green before.
I have not.
That's a first, and I'm super excited.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's also important when you're thinking about what you want to use and what you're going to add to change colors, that you don't use things that have either bleach or ammonia in them. But there are lots of other choices that you can find in your house to make cool colors. One of my favorite experiments is trying different types of vinegar to see if I get different colors of pink from like apple cider vinegar versus a regular vinegar. There's all kinds of things you can try.
Oh, that's interesting. Just different types
like
of
a rice vinegar. Yeah.
Could you get different shades with the?
It's been a while since I tried it, but if I recall correctly, I did get some slightly different, like some of them were just a little bit more acidic than the other ones. So if I added the same amount, I got slightly different shades, something that was a little bit more red versus something that was more of like a magenta.
Nice.
Cool.
And what if you don't like the color that you got?
You can always change it back. So the beauty of these is if you're adding an acid, you can bring something back to more of a neutral pH by adding a base. Actually, if you check out, if you let them sit for a little bit, you'll see that the colors change. So you'll see this one that was more of like a greenish thing has gone this kind of off brown yellow.
Whoa.
Because I added something that's really basic.
Oh my
soda
God.
ash can also put you in vaguely this realm. So we've got 5 cool colors all coming from one cabbage.
Amazing.
But if I wanted to change it back, I could always just add a base to an acid or the other way around. Although you will, if you're going to be mixing things, I do recommend that you are kind of careful about what you're mixing together. Because sometimes if you're using something like baking soda and you're adding vinegar, you're gonna get a little bit of a reaction as well.
Science experiment.
Yes.
So actually, it's been about 5 minutes, a little bit more. So now that we've been talking about colors, we're actually going to do some color changing on the 2 pieces of fabric I just put in the pigment. So I'm going to take them out. I will try to get out as much excess pigment because I don't need it. I'm just going to lay it here, and then same with the shirt. Woo! See, there's a lot. The good thing is if you get messy doing this or you get some on your clothes, it is water soluble. So you don't have to worry about that. And let me lay it out. Wow, that was a lot. Okay. So I have, for my acid, I picked lime juice. Let me move this so you guys can see. Lime juice. And then for the base, I have a laundry soap. Can't really see. There's some bubbles in there though. So let's check out the shirt. We start off with this bluish purple, blurple, we like to call it.
It's like a lavender.
Yeah, I like that, lavender. So let's see what happens when I add some lime juice. Let's start over here. Maybe I'll do every segment a different color. Ooh, can you guys see that? Let me bring this closer.
Oh, it always looks so good, especially right when you add it, because it's super bright.
Yeah. Wow. I love this is like my favorite part. So maybe every other segment we'll do pink. Just a little bit here. And let me do this one, and then I'll pick up the soap. Yeah, it's super fun playing with the colors. And here we have, again, some laundry soap. So it's a powder. I just mixed it in with some water to get it into a liquid. And let's do this big one so you can see. Oh, nice. That's my favorite color right there. Super beautiful green.
It looks so pretty.
Yeah. And then let's get to the triangle fold. So for this one, maybe I can do green in the middle here. And I just have, one acid and one base right now for a quick demo, but as Caitlin was showing us, you can do so much more, create a whole palette of colors.
Definitely. I have found that it is a lot easier to get like a pink or a red and to overshoot and end up with something that's more of a bluish green. Getting something that lands that is like a weak base that doesn't already have a lot of color in it can be kind of hard to find. So usually where I end up with blue in when I'm coloring things is where like two things intersect and kind of cancel each other out a little bit. Blue is surprisingly hard to get.
Isn't that weird?
I know.
I would have thought the pink would have been the hard one, but no. All right. So yeah, we changed some colors. Looking pretty nice. And actually, let me show you one other technique. So I made this bucket hat right here. You can sort of see some like green circles, and then they go into like different shades of green right there. So this technique is super fun. It's a little time consuming, but I also actually use that same technique to make this bandana here.
Oh, I love the spots.
This one reminds me of like a sea anemone. Did I say that right? Sea anemone?
Oh yeah.
Sea anemone. Yeah. Yeah, this one's super fun.
That's so cool. So what if you have like little hands around, Maria? Do you have any techniques for like small kids to try?
Yes, actually, super good question. We did find a really cool technique. So kind of similar to the last one I just showed you with the spots. Well, I'll show you what it looks like after. Let me show you how to make it. What you can do for kids is get just a bandana, dunk it in your pigment. Doesn't have to be a bandana, it can be anything. And then, let me move this again. I'm not even gonna let it soak just so I can show you. In fact, I don't need to because I didn't really fold it. But what you can do is lay it flat. I'll do half of one. Lay it flat right here. And I've cut up some limes in half. Oh, that's such a nice looking shape. And you can use them as stamps. You don't even have to like play with liquid so much. You can just stamp them with the limes or lemons. You see that? Oh,
That's so cool.
Let me show you closer. Yeah. So you can create a big polka dot pattern if you like. Check this out. See that?
I guess if you wanted to get fancy, you could cut the limes into shapes before you handed them over.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
that so definitely. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. You can get really creative. Oh, you know what? I didn't even show you. I was talking about the bucket hat and the other bandana. To do that method, if you want to try that, it's simple. Like I said, it's a little time consuming. But for that one, all you do, similar to the shirt, is you will grab a little section. So you see where I have the pink circles. I would have grabbed that, and then you tie it off with a rubber band.
Just make a bunch of little blubs.
You just make a bunch of little blubs. Okay, I didn't do a very good job of tying that one. But you just continue. And it'll take a while because you have to do it throughout your piece of fabric. But you do get a really cool effect. I think it's worth it. You can even do it with a single color and you can see where the folds kind of kept the pigment away, where the pigment was concentrated in the circles. So that one can be really, really fun.
I did find a different one that works well for little hands if you want to try something. So what I did was I changed the color of all of my pigments first. So I changed them all and then I just poured them into an ice cube tray. This one's empty right now, but I poured them all into an ice cube tray and then let them freeze. And then took them out and set them up on top of just like a baking dish with some chopsticks across the top, and put all the ice cubes on top of this and let them melt. And so as they were melting, all of the color and the pigment spread out. And what my favorite part about this,
my God,
you can kind of see along the edges where like this big yellow spots is a great example where it's like really basic in the center. And then you can see where along the edges where it hits things that are more acidic, it changes to a color that's slightly less basic. And you get that green ridge around the outside where your different color changing ingredients are changing the color.
that looks
really cool looking
so
and
cool.
super easy.
Yeah, and you got the colors to be super like vibrant on that.
I know. I wish they looked this good on my shirt. I'll be honest.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Yeah, no, super cool. And you know, you can play around with any technique. You don't even have to like use a specific technique. If you try different folds you come up with, like I tried wrapping a bandana from the center. I used a straw and then I kind of like pulled it back and then used string around it, and it created this really cool like radial pattern.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you can get so creative with these.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna leave everything to the side. And normally we leave I leave my tie-dyed fabrics maybe in a bag overnight, just a plastic bag like this. So I'm gonna leave the ones I just wrapped up and change the colors on to sit overnight in a second, but I'm gonna show you what these patterns that I tried last night look like. So we're gonna unfold these. I actually did them very similar to the ones I showed you. So looking into this bag right now, I'm gonna pull out one that I did. This is like a bandana, and I did it pretty similar to the shirt. So for the bullseye pattern. So all I do now is remove rubber bands. This might take a while. You just have to be careful not to snap the rubber bands on your fingers too.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah. Oh, and then pro tip, after you're done doing this, wash your hands and moisturize, because if you use acids or, you know, maybe some like harsher soaps, laundry soaps, etc., you can dry your hands out. So, or you can wear gloves. I did that too, and that helped a lot.
Yeah, everything we're using is stuff that you'd have around your house, but definitely not something that everything isn't always something you want to leave on your hands for a long time.
Yeah, no. Let me see. About halfway. Big reveal coming. I know.
While you're doing that, so I did mine. I didn't actually have any rubber bands at home. So what I did was I soaked my shirt in the pigment. Then I just have a squeezy bottle hanging around. I just filled that with first some acids and then some bases, rinsing it out every time so that they didn't like counteract each other. And I just kind of drew along it with some big swoops to get some cool dots and lines out of mine.
And it turned out
rubber bands.
But it turned out so cool. Like, that's what I'm saying. You can create your own patterns. Let's check this out.
That's the best part about the color changing. Oh, what's it gonna look like?
Oh, look at that.
Oh man, that looks so cool.
Whoa, see, it even concentrated in that center spot there. But look at this. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, and actually I didn't even like this pigment I used was not super concentrated. So you can get them a little bit more vibrant. Let's check out the triangle fold Shibori technique bandana. It's only 3 rubber bands, thank goodness. Let me tell you, if you do the other one like I showed you with the bucket hat where you tie those little blubs off the whole fabric, that one takes a while to reveal.
So it would keep somebody occupied for a while at least.
Oh yeah. Check this out.
Whoa.
Ah. Yeah, so you can see how the colors seeped into each other, and that creates a new, like a hue, right? Very, very, I'm very happy with this one.
That looks, oh man, Maria, that looks so cool. It's fun
Yeah.
to see how like different dyeing techniques are working, where like instead of using like the bands to hold everything in place, it's just really tight folding that
Hmm.
creates those cool patterns. That's so neat.
Yeah. Well, we saw some really, really cool patterns, but what other awesome things can you do with your cabbage pigment?
I mean, one of the easiest things to do, and I know we've mentioned it before, but is to use your cabbage pigments to make watercolor paints. I know, Maria, you've made some really cool art using paint, using your cabbage ink watercolors.
Yeah, actually, we did a whole series of Cabbage Inks paintings for Inktober, where there's a prompt each day of the month in October, and so you do something right for that prompt. So let me show you. This is one of the ones. I think this was the first one. I forget what the
So
prompt was.
pretty.
It might have been fish. So yeah, this one I did October 1st, and you can see those colors are still there, and you can still make out the different colors. And then this one too, this is more with just a single color, but you can get
Aw.
some really, really cool watercolors out of your cabbage pigment.
Oh, that's so cool, Maria.
Yeah, yeah. Cabbage is underrated. It is underrated. Well, I can't wait to see how our tie-dye turns out. We do have to leave it overnight. But now we have time for some questions if you guys have them. So let's look through this.
Looks like we have a handful of questions. We have a couple of questions about cooking and making the cabbage. Monica asked how long you boil the cabbage for. I am perhaps not the person to ask that because my stove is not great. So when I boil my cabbage, it does take quite a while for the cabbage to heat up and start boiling. But I know some other people that boil them for about half an hour or so. I've boiled mine for probably about as little as half an hour. I tried to do it once and it took a lot longer than that, but that was right after I moved in, and I'm still learning how my stove worked. It really is up to you how long you want to let your cabbage boil. It helps to just kind of keep an eye on it and see how much water you've got left. Let's see. Emily asked if the cabbage is still edible afterwards. It absolutely is. All you've done is boil it. So if you that's it. You haven't made any other changes to your cabbage when you're making it. So if you have a different recipe that requires you to boil and then drain your cabbage before you use it, you could totally take what you've drained off that has your pigment in it, use it to do some cool crafts, and then use your cabbage for eating and for whatever your recipe is.
Yeah, double win.
Let's see.
How about Camille asked if we want colors other than purple, can we use any other vegetables or plants?
Totally. A lot of other vegetables and plants might not necessarily be color changing, right? They might not be pH sensitive, so you might only be able to get one color out of them, but you could use things like beets or maybe carrots, blueberries, spinach would be a great
Blueberries,
way to get like a
yes.
really cool green. So you could try a whole bunch of different veggies. They just might not all be color changing like our awesome cabbage pigment.
Yeah, another one to throw in there. I've heard avocado pits give you this really cool, like, how would you describe it? Like a pinkish brown type feel.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Avocado
Oh,
pits.
cool.
And then let's see. Can you make the liquid and save it for later in the fridge? Absolutely. So
Yeah.
this tub I pulled out from the fridge. I made it 2 days ago. When I was doing Inktober, I saved like 2 jars of pigment in the fridge for about 2-3 weeks. Then afterwards, you have to be careful. You don't want it to get moldy, especially if you're like I was pouring it out every day a little bit. That gives anything in the air the opportunity to come in. So
More
just watch out for
opportunities
that.
to get in there.
Yeah. But you can definitely save it. I just wouldn't save it for too long.
Yeah, I've saved some for I saved some between when we were first making this activity to put out on the second home, and then tried it again a couple of months later. I had 2 jars left. One of them had gone brown. Someone definitely hadn't worked anymore, but I let that go for a really long time. So as long as you keep an eye on it, if you want to make it one weekend and then use it the next weekend, you could absolutely do that. If you're thinking about, so someone asked if you, what are the risks of washing like traditional washes of your garments? Can they bleed onto other articles? Maria, you've
So,
done more washing than I have.
yeah, I haven't really washed it with anything else. I did. So when I rinsed one with just water, actually, no, I did get some droplets on my shirt the other day when I was boiling the cabbage. Those came out like right away. Um, I don't know about washing a full fabric with your other clothing. I think I would rinse it out first because you also want to get any acids and whatnot out of it before you mix it in with your clothing.
If you used a soap, then there would be a bunch of soap in your garment.
Yeah, yeah. So I would rinse it first and then maybe once you get as much as you can, wash it. Um, let's see what other plants can be used to dye clothing. Oh, we talked a little bit about that. There are so many. I think blueberries would be a really cool one to try. We just don't know that they are all pH sensitive, so they might not change colors.
You could get one cool color out of them, just maybe not
Yeah, you can
5.
still make a palette though if you have a bunch of produce.
Oh yeah.
um, and what other items would work well for tie dyeing? So I tried bandanas, a t-shirt, and this bucket hat, which I can't fit over my head.
That looks awesome.
um, I did want to try like overalls or even a lab coat. You just kind of have to make sure stuff doesn't have some coating on it, right?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking about trying to do like cloth, either napkins, which would be just like really a bandana, or trying to make like placemats or something, especially if we're coming up on the holidays. If you're staying at home and you want to have something just a little extra touch while you're at home with your family, maybe like making some really cool cabbage based stuff would be awesome.
So it's funny you mentioned placemats. We talked a little bit about it earlier, Caitlin, but if you make placemats, if you spill your drink on apple juice or something, if you spill it on your placemat, you can watch it change colors. So it would be a really fun interactive placemat, right?
That's true. My
Um,
aunt likes to put vinegar on the table for like salads, and then it's like, oh, look, I don't like the color of my placemat. A star.
um, should I pre-wash my fabric before tie dyeing? So I did. I just threw them in the wash. I think I did put soap. Um, and then that time I also tried after washing them, I tried pre-soaking them in soda ash. So let me tell you this, when you put them in the wash, you're fine. It should work. Like everything I did in front of you right now was put in the wash earlier. Um,
It
but
helps to let it dry
pre-treated.
first, though, right,
Oh,
Maria?
let it dry. Yeah, thank you for that. Let it dry because otherwise any leftover liquid on there is going to dilute your pigment. So it's not going to be as strong. Um, just don't pre-soak it in anything else. Like if anything, maybe wash it with some water, soap, rinse it out really well so it's not soapy, because then that will end up getting it pretty basic. So your color might be kind of restricted later on. Um, just don't pre-treat it. No soda ash. Definitely no soda ash. We tried that. Um, I wish
Unless
I
you're
could show
going
you.
for, if you're going for a single color and you
It-
want to have it all look like a cool pattern, that'll work. It'll just all come out, this color.
exactly. Yeah, I tried that. Initially, it turns green, and once it dries, it's like a really faint brown. Um, it depends on what you want. You can try it.
Let's
Uh,
see. So Dorothy has asked if we tried any natural mordants, like iron or alum with the cabbage. A mordant is something that you use. It's similar to like something like soda ash, where it helps to bind the dye to the fibers in your fabric. I guess we did just answer that question, didn't we? I haven't tried iron or alum with
no,
the
I haven't.
but it would totally be a great way to start. You could make your own experiment and try pre-treating or using some mordants ahead of time, and try some that don't and see what happens. That would be actually a lot of fun to try.
Yeah, please do tell us if you try it. um,
Definitely, Maria.
well,
If people do try this out and they take pictures, what should they share them with?
yeah, so please share your pictures with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'll drop those links later for our social media handles. And you can also tag your pictures with hashtag the tech at home, so that we can find them and check out what you've done.
I
Since
can't
it looks,
wait to see what everybody tries.
I know, please, 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 I would love to see what you all try. It looks like we are slowing down on questions. That might be it. So thank you so much for joining this afternoon's cabbage tie-dye demonstration. Again, we would love to see what you make. Please share with us. And before we go, we wanted to share with you a really, really exciting promotion. Although we'll be close through the holidays, we're sending some of that magic to your home. So when you order a membership for yourself or as a gift, we're sending a box full of crafty activities and 2 tickets to our IMAX. So look for an email coming soon, and that way you can take advantage of this holiday membership pack. Thank you again for joining us today. Have a great evening. Share what you create with us. We would love to see it. And I hope you had
Absolutely.
fun.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you, Caitlin. That was great.